Hi everyone, welcome back. Uh, we are almost at the end of our sessions at Spartan Summit. Hope you are having lots of fun and you are learning about a lot of topics that our Spartans are sharing. So one of this session is one of the session that is very close to that what we ignore, but is something that we should learn on. So the next session is about security. It's something that we all know is critical, but we often do we really prioritize it in testing. I'm Spursh Kestri from Developer Relations team at Lambda Test, and I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐨𝐻𝐢𝐫, a seasoned QA leader who has seen firsthand the impact of security in testing. As a head of QA in Remita, she has helped teams to integrate security testing best practices into their workflows. 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻𝐢𝐫 is a distinguished leader in this software testing and cybersecurity and digital transformation with a career that spans academic excellence, industry innovations, and entrepreneurial success. Today, she is here to demystify security testing and give us practical strategies to build safer and more resilient applications. Before I hand over to 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻𝐢𝐫, we are also running a social media contest. So use hashtag Spartan Summit and post your learnings on session tagging 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻𝐢𝐫 and Lambda Test, and top three winners will win a cool voucher. Please feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat or use the emojis down below to show some love to our speaker. And stay tuned for the Q&A session in the end. 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻𝐢𝐫, over to you. Hi, 𝐈𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻𝐢𝐫𝐻.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon. Good day, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm so happy to be the last speaker for today, and I'll make it as short as possible, but as detailed as you need. Just like Spark had done. Thank you so much, Spark, and thank you so much, Lambda Test, for having me as a keynote speaker in this year's edition. And of course, I look forward to much more edition going forward. And so I'll be coming up with my screen. And yes, well, like what he said, I'll be speaking so much more about security testing, especially for quality engineers. And when I say quality engineers, I'm not just talking about QA engineers or testers. I'm talking about both developers are quality engineers, right? So testers are also quality engineers. You're a DevOps person, you're a quality engineer. You're an architectural person, you're a quality engineer. Everybody's a quality engineer. But to be very much specific, my session today is focused more on test engineers to know how to impute security essentials into how to test. So necessarily teaching everyone and sharing my little knowledge on how to test smarter. So just take this session as testing smartly or test smarter. And so my very brief first question to everyone is, what if I told you that every single overlooked test cases that you have ever written could cost millions? Like, what if I told you that security vulnerability is not just hacker's playground, but a quality engineer's blind spot? What if you are the really main problem and really not the hacker that is breaking into your system? What if you are the one that have blind spots to areas that you should be looking into? Or you are the one that is overlooking test scenarios that you should be paying more attention to? In the last panel session, I talk about risk-based testing. I talk about looking into what really matters rather than the old documentation that you are spending your time doing. So just recently, which I'm going to talk about, you wake up in the morning and you saw these major headlines in your local news platforms. Major financial app breach, especially in the era of fintechs. Millions lost, user trust shattered. My first question to you will be, okay, so who are they going to reach out to? Are they going to say, oh, security team did not protect us well? Are they going to say QA did not test very well? And then when they come to you and say QA did not test very well, like, what is my business? Right? Now, if you are still in that mindset of what is your business, it means you are still following the traditional testing. Now, not that the traditional testing is bad, it just means that you don't fit into 2025 modern testing day and you don't look into the future of testing. So, when you have this kind of headline, the first person we are looking to It's the QA engineer. Yes, it's the test engineers, it's the software tester, it's the test analyst, it's the product test engineers, it's anybody in the test team. In January 2024, using this as a friction, a leading fintech company wakes up to a nightmare. Millions has been drained from their customers' accounts. And after the whole back and forth and rudiment, do you know what the root cause is? A simple misconfiguration that was never tested. That was all. A simple misconfiguration that was never tested. A QA team, as you mostly call it in today's organization, they had executed functional testing. You possibly have done your regression test, you have done your exploratory test, you have done your UI test, but you will mostly not do security testing. An attacker exploits a missing authentication check in an API endpoint, which allow unauthorized withdrawal. The question is, could this be you? And the main answer I would also tell you is it definitely can be you. Let me give you a live scenario. In 2018 to be precise, I had just gotten, to Lagos. This is a state in Nigeria, for those that don't know. And I was not used to people stealing people's devices from where I was coming from. Long story short, my phone was taken from me just at the junction when I was about to take a bus. By the time I got home, I could not find my phone. And I thought, oh, they are stealing my phone. I think that's the worst that could happen, right? And of course, if your phone gets stolen, you probably think, oh, they are stealing my phone and that's it. No. By the time I was able to eventually go, I called the line. It was not reachable. I just thought, oh, somebody has stolen my phone. I don't need to go and retrieve my line. And that was it. Then I opened my email when I got to work the next day. I had told my team and families, please, my phone has been stolen, my number might not be reachable. And I thought that was all. I got to the office the next day. I opened my email and guess what I saw? Debit alert emails. I was seeing on my account, I had a restriction of not more than 20,000. Let me use a global currency. Let's say I don't have the access to transfer more than $10,000 at once. That is the limit on my account. However, when I look at my email of the debit alert that I got, guess what? I was seeing debit alert of $15,000, $10,000, $20,000 at once. It was so bad that I saw more than 300 debit alerts to an unknown account, and my account balance was $0. How were they going to trace it? Do you know what these people did? They literally logged into my application and they were able to use my phone or my USSD to buy up a service that was just not true. I don't even know what the service was. Now, if you're going to go back to the bank and say, I had lots of questions to the bank. One, how was the person able to transfer above my limit? Because I had a limit of $10,000 to be transferred in a day. How come they're able to transfer $15,000 or $20,000 at once? Throughout the day, my total limit that I can make per day, for those that are very close to financial transactions and limits, per day, my total allowed limit of transaction is $100,000. But by the time we calculate it, it was over $150,000 that had been withdrawn. Now, all of these figures are just examples. I'm not there yet. And it raised questions. How were they able to transfer without my PIN? How were they able to transfer above above my single transaction and above my daily transactions? How were we able to make this transfer that it is not even traceable with the details? The logs were missing. How was this possible? How was this all done? Like I was having debit alerts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concurrently, and nobody was raising an alarm. No security alerts that this person is withdrawing concurrently within a space of 20 to 30 minutes. All my accounts had been withdrawn. And everybody in the bank was looking at me like I was speaking in Swahili. Sorry for the Swahili audience. Attackers will possibly look for missing authentication checks in the API endpoint. I went back that day, of course, after the whole back and forth and issues that happened. And then I went back to sit down with this application online banking. And then I started testing the application. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I discovered was that there were no authentication check on those API endpoints. In fact, without logging into that user's account, I was able to make some transactions. Well, you know me as a tester. To just round up the story, at the end of the day, I gave my test report all together and I sent it to the bank. And that was how conversation started. Was I able to get all my money back? Definitely not. But was I able to get compensation? Yes. But the question is, how many people knows that? So imagine companies like fintech with millions of users, and then just an hacker had access to just that leakage. Millions of money to go. So before you point to the security team, check your work. Did you do the right security check on your endpoint, on your APIs? So the question is it very possible that in what you are testing, we always say this thing to the tester is written, but about the usability of the application. So I'm also saying this to tester. It's really not about the 10,000 test cases you have written. It is really about the security and assurance that your test is ensuring in security. Because before now, that is our traditional QA role, we are focused on functionality, usability, and performance. We are also focused on ensuring software behave as expected. We are also focused on, when it comes to security, it is someone else's problem, especially the security team. But today, in the modern QA role, which is, I'm talking from the 20th century and 2025 and beyond, security is a shared responsibility. Quality assurance engineers or test engineers or whatever name or title you function in the test team, you must think like an hacker. We must test not only the functionality, but for the resilience of our application and products against attacks. So, in today's era, just so for me to speak from my background as a master degree holder in cybersecurity, threat intelligence, and forensics, in an era of AI driven attacks and cloud native architecture, attackers no longer follow the traditional hacking method. They use automation, forcing, API poisoning to exploit vulnerabilities. If we don't test for security proactively, even as a test engineer, we are leaving the door wide open for our company to be stormed. So these are the 5 key essentials for every quality engineer. 5, just 5, and I'll be done. The first one is you need to master the hacker's mindset. See, when you want to get the person in the house who steals, you need to then pretend to be a thief. It's no, it doesn't go by to say if you want to catch a thief, you need to act like one. So test smarter by thinking like an attacker. Now, I'm going to leave you this question and I want you all to give me answers in the comment section. Type your answers. Let me know what you think. My question is, imagine you're an hacker and you have just 1 hour to break into your own application, either as a developer, as a test engineer, as a product manager. My question is, where would you start from? I'll be looking forward to the answers in the session and I might just have a gift for you. So I want to see answers. If you have 1 hour to break into one of the applications in your organization, where do you think you will start from? While you're answering that question, let me continue. Start thinking. You need to test smarter by thinking like an attacker. How do attackers exploit system? API vulnerability is so the most default way. In fact, in the whole breakdown of OWASP municipality on how attackers exploit the system, API rate like 85% of how attackers penetrate into system and how they exploit into system. API vulnerability, we are talking about unprotected endpoints. I see some endpoints in organizations, and I'm seeing you return endpoint that has unprotected endpoint URL. Your responses are not hashed and protected. Your information that you are shared, things you are not meant to have access to, you're having access to them. The second one is broken authentication. Are you saying the user should only be able to do this? If I'm not the user, am I really being able to do these things? What limits should I be limited to? Am I really staying within that limit? What can I not do? Who can do what? Authentication cannot be broken. You send endpoint to log in without an authorization. The second one that hackers use to exploit system today is SQL injection and XSLs. Exploit input fields. Today, I know that we are using, we are all using QA environment, test environments. Um, we are all thinking differently. When we are in test environment, we are like, we do less of quality check, we do less of validation on the input field because it's a test environment, right? We just it's a test environment, so we don't really put in a lot of mindset. The problem to that is, which is fine. The problem to that is that we carry that same application authentication in a production environment. And it's very possible that you get to forget it. So, even your test environment should be healthy. I'm not saying you should carry out security tests and all of that in your test environment. What I'm saying important is one of the ways your hackers can exploit your system is SQL injection and SSL, which is exploiting your input fields. Ensure your input fields are being validated. Ensure that they are being validated. That's all I can say. The third one is insecure data storage. Are you exposing your user credentials? Who has access to your user credentials? How many people in the team has access to your user credentials on productions? Even when your users are logging in, are they protected? What are the level of verification you do before the user is able to access your product? How do you verify that this user is the real owner of this application? How do you verify that this user is the right person to access this information? So I'm going to go to the comment section now to see what the answers has been on my question. If you're an hacker and then you have 1 hour to break into your application, where would you start from? I could see responses. I don't know if this is when I started. Yes, I can see um authentication from Spatch. Awesome. I'm looking for seeing request interrupt using third-party tool xbroke. Awesome. Try OWASP tools like Bob tools to exploit. Awesome. When Bob come for production, QA is the first person to roll. Yes. Yes, Bob Suit, OWASP Zap are some of the tools that automation QAs can think of trying, whether automation or not. Paint, but my question was, where would you start from? And that's where somebody said authentication. See, you will mostly always start from your access to the system, which is authentication. Thank you. I love that. So let's continue. The second one, sorry, that you should consider and you should master today. Remember we are talking about the key security essentials for quality engineers. The second one will be security testing is beyond penetration and application test. See, security testing is not just for pen or AppSec testers. It is for every tester. And we have 2 types of security testing that you can do. The static one, which is where you scan your source code for vulnerability, which a lot of development team does today. The second one is dynamic. Test running application for weakness, which is something you can invest in. Best practices for security awareness for testers: test for API security, broken authentication, expose secret information, test for APIs. Don't just carry out your API testing manual and automation, functional and integration system. Do API security test. Perform your input validation. Prevent SQL injection, XSS attacks. Test for session hijacking and broken access control. How can you test for session hijacking? You have logged in into device 1 with your credential, and while that is still on, you go to your next device and try to log in with the same account. Are you still logged in? Is one logged out for the other one? Is there broken access control? Can you log in on your iOS and Android using the same information and logged in at the same time? There's a particular application we have where I am in my country. And I realized that with my account, I was able to log in with over 7 devices at once. Just my one account. I was able to log into over 7 to 8 devices. Now, did they not do functional tests? Of course it was done. Did they not do performance testing? Of course it was done. But what they did not check for is session hijacking and broken access control. And that could only be done by a tester who is security conscious. So imagine all these ride hauling apps once suffered a breach because session token were not invalidated. After user logs out, user who logged out could still access the account from an old session. A simple logout test could have prevented this. Let me reiterate what I mean. It means that I left my account. In fact, another real life scenario that I just remembered now is that I was logging into an account today, 25th of February, right? And I shut down my browser, I quit my browser, I shut off my laptop. I launched my laptop on 26th of February. Ladies and gentlemen, I was still able to go through different menus. I was not logged out. I was not timed out. I was still logged in. This is enough for whatever kind of vulnerability that wants, whatever hacking and attacking that wants to be done. That was enough window. And it was a financial application. So please, you need to be conscious more about security testing. Don't It's not just about penetration or application security, but test for session hijacking and broken access control. Test for your impute validation. Test for API security. The third one is automating security testing in your CI/CD pipeline. I'm grateful for the company that I work in today, Remita. That is done. But I don't know if you are doing the same thing in your company. Integrate security into the CI/CD pipeline. In situation whereby there's an automated security scanning tool like OAuth Zap, Bob Soup, SonarCube, impute it into your security pipeline so that you don't get to deploy anything until your security scanning is done and completed and shows successful. Shift left of your security, meaning that to carry out your security testing early in the development, when your developer is done writing their code, when you're done testing, when you're about to deploy, even post your deployment, run dependency checks to prevent supply chain attacks. Supply chain attack is more like you have a third party that has already been exposed to a security application or a security hijacking, and they come to integrate with you, right? And in the course of integrating with you, you are also by extension, by chain, exposed to that security attack. So you have to run dependency check to prevent supply chain attacks. What are the tools to help you test smarter? AI powered security testing, which uses AI to detect vulnerability faster. This was my major project in my master's degree. I did automation testing alongside security testing at once. And my AI was able to detect for security vulnerabilities in the course of my testing. Fuse testing, randomized input testing for unexpected security flaws. Container security scanning, ensuring your Docker on Kubernetes security is secure. The fourth one I'm going to mention because of our time, API security is mostly overlooked threat. 80%, like I mentioned in the beginning of the session, 80% of our modern attacks is targeted on APIs. How do we test smartly? Authentication and authorization. Prevent unauthorized access from having access to the system they do not need. Rate limiting and throttling. Protect against brute force attacks. Encryption, data protection. Ensure sensitive data is not exposed. Are they hashed? Can we see all the information of the user's card? Are they protected? How many people have access to the database to access them? I would have loved to do a live demo using OAuth Zap to detect security vulnerability in APIs, but I'll not be able to do that now because of our time and also because of my tool. And I don't want to, if I use any API that is public, it always prompts to vulnerability, and I don't want to use a secured API. So I will leave you with this. If you're not testing API security, you are not testing yourself. In 2020, you can do implementation usefulness of an application that is well tested but is not secure. Testing smarter means influencing the entire team, building a security first culture. How do you do that? Advocate more for security awareness in your dev team. Conduct security test reviews in your sprint retrospectives. Now, when I say challenge developer, it is for them to do better, help them to see why to do better, not to, you know, fight with them. Challenge them. What is the worst thing that could happen if it fails? Every tester listening to me right now must not only find bugs, they must prevent breaches. Security is a quality issue, and quality engineers must lead the way. My last thoughts for today is the future of security testing. The cost of fixing a security bug in production is 30 times higher than catching it in development. What if we could prevent security issues before they even happen? Now, I know you want to say, oh, what about the functional bugs? Trust me, based on my research, the bug you catch on production, like the normal functional bugs, well, it's going to cost the company like, let's say 10% or 10x the usual cost. However, when there is a security breach, it's going to cost 30 times higher the usual one. So, things I want you to take note from here. Security testing is part of software testing. It is part of quality assurance. It is not separate from each other. The best security tester think like hackers. So you need to start thinking like one. API security must be a top priority for you, not an afterthought. Automation and AI can enhance, not replace the human intelligence in security testing. No. My last challenge to you, which I want to see your comment section. What security gaps do you think you are currently overlooking today in your test strategy? If we are to look at your test strategy document today, do you have your security plan in it? Even if you are working with a security team, is there a sync with your security team? Are you working with them hand in hand to protect the system? For I want the answers in the comment section, please. What security gaps do you think? I mean, this is for you to do a retrospective of yourself. What security gap do you think you are overlooking in your test strategy? Test smartly, test securely, and be the last line of defense. Trust me, your product manager trusts you to not overlook stuff. Your developer trusts you to help them look good. You cannot be the focus and still be missing in action. So you have to maintain your position as the last line of defense. Before we go, if you really want to get started with your security testing journey, my few recommendation would be take up an ethical hacking course. Trust me, it is not as difficult as you think. It is not so complicated or hard or wow, it's a dark word. You can't no. If I can learn it, you can. Take up some OAP security testing courses and certification. The reason why I wanted you to do OAPs is because it even provides you grounds to be able to test knowledge of what you have learned. And even ISCQB has the advanced IS security tester course. Try to take one. Different tools I will ask you to play around with as a tester. Number one, like you have already everybody said since morning, play with OWASP Zap. Is an open source security scanner. Play with Bob Suit. We have security testing too. Play with SonarQube. It's a static security tool. In fact, it's already embedded into your IntelliJ or Visual Studio Code, depending on what you're using. SonarQube is already there waiting for you. My favorite is OWASP Zap and Bob Suit. I love them. I know there are many more other tools than that, but these are my recommended security tools, and these are how I'm proposing that you get started with your learning. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I've come to the end of my session. I'm now open to all your questions and answer. Over to you, um, Spatch. I don't know if you're on the call.
Hi, Ronki. Yes. Thank you for such an amazing session. I think there are some questions inside the chats, but so just a reminder to all of you, please feel free to add your questions in the Q&A so that we can take them up.
Okay.
Uh, trying to it was very wonderful session. I got to understand very much about security testing and testing and why it is important. How should we start? And
Yeah.
so we have one question. Let me put it on stage. What are the most overlooked security risks in modern test automation? Asked by Ritu.
What are the most security risk? Is that what I read? What
Yes,
are the most
most overlooked
security
security risks. Yes.
mm, in our automation world? I would say, um, because we are all running agile. Let me start from there. Because we are all running agile system, we quickly forget the risks that could come with it. Now, let me give you an example. Hard coded secret in automation is the silent killer is a pipeline. Code tokens in the test scripts or even in their configuration files, right? This is a major problem because oftentimes they do forget. This secret gets pushed to our repository. Sometimes even the public repository. If you just go on GitHub, if you know anybody URL, username on GitHub, and then you'll be seeing secret information, tokens of organization on public repository. Let me give you an example. In 2023, a major fintech company faced a breach when attackers discovered. I mean, I know the name of the company, but I'm not going to mention it. It is here in Nigeria. A major fintech faced this breach when attackers discovered had coded AWS keys in their automation test scripts. What was the result? They had unrestricted access to sensitive customer data. So, how do you fix that? Use secret management tools like AWS Secret Manager, Vaults, your environment variables. Implement automated secret scanning, e.g., your GitHub secret scanning, your Truffle org. You can use them. Rotate your credential frequently and enforce least privileged access. Least privileged access means you only have access to the people you should have access to. The number two things that we overlook in terms of security in this our modern age automation world is we are ignoring security in API automation. Automated API tests often validates responses, but we ignore security flaws like broken authentication, unvalidated inputs, missing rate limits, and stuff like that. I'll basically say for you to fix that, just include your OAuth API security top 10, automate your negative tests, your input valid, your SQL injection, and all of that. Ensure your API enforces authentication and authorization. The third one I'll mention is we have over reliance on automation without security validation. If it passes the test, then it must be safe, which is not true. How do you fix that? Implement security focused test automation. Another one I would say is unsecure test data in automation. Real data in test environment is a real risk. Many times, the team uses live production data in test environment for automation. If test logs or report leaks, personal information has been exposed. So, what you do, use synthetic data, your test data, ensure test environments are secured like production. Can talk about some automation tools with weak security configuration. In our panel session, somebody talked about testing the tool and doing a proof of concept on those tools before you recommend it for the company. So in our automation world, we have automation tools with weak security configuration. So ensure that you are validating those tools before you use them. Those are the things that we just mentioned briefly.
Thank you so much, Shivyanki. I hope that answers your question, Ritu. Uh, Moving to the next question. Uh, how do you test for security vulnerabilities in AI-powered applications? Asked by Aparna.
How do you test for security vulnerabilities in an AI?
Powered applications.
Oh, is my network?
There is a bit lag. Uh, I hope am I audible? I'm audible to you. Uh, Meanwhile, Ibronki is working on her network. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A tab, or like you can also add
Can
to the
you
chat.
hear me?
Yes, yes, Ibronki, I can hear you.
Oh, so sorry. I think my network just went up. But yeah, I said I can see the question. How do you test for security vulnerabilities in AI powered application? So I would say model poisoning attacks, data privacy and leakage. Um, Test if the AI models can be manipulated by feeding biased or malicious training data that can alter the decision making. The second one is I would say ensure AI doesn't memorize or expose sensitive data in response. Um, and maybe my third one would be prompt injection attacks for LLMs, for LLMS. That is, test how AI handles malicious or misleading prompts to prevent unintended output or data leakage. I'll leave it. So the bottom line is AI testing requires both traditional security testing and AI specific adversarial testing to ensure that the robustness and reliability is ensured. Those are the few ones that I know of.
Awesome. Thank you, Bronchi. So I think we are on time. I will just pick up one last question. So
Okay.
for all the unanswered question, we will reach out to you, Bronchi, with all your questions and post it on our community channel. So I will assure you all your questions are answered. And yeah. So picking the last question, asked by Kalyani, what are the some best practices for ensuring test data security during automated testing?
Hmm. That's a very good question. I would say use synthetic or max data. Um, Secure your test data storage. Restrict access to your test data. Because it's test data doesn't mean that it should be all over the place. Protect it. Um, Clean up the data after you have finished testing. You know, tear those data down. Secure your test logs and reports. Automate compliance check. And I would just say protect your data as much as you prevent your production data from leaks, from breaches, or from compliance violations. Basically, just protect your data as much as you protect your production data. Basically, I think that's all for me.
Thank you, Bronchi. Just maybe one just last small question. Suggest some tools for web application vulnerability scanning.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in my slide. I mentioned OWASP Zap. I mentioned Bob Suits. Those two are amazing tools that you can use. In fact, Bob Suits in specific is my amazing tool that you can use.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, Thank you so much, Bronchi. That concludes our Q&A section. Uh,
You're
and,
welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much for being such a lovely and engaging audience. I hope your questions were answered. And if you missed any part of the section or if you want to revisit, we will be sharing the recording with you very soon. So stay tuned and stay curious. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bronchi.
Thank you so much, everyone. And let's have a great time. See you next year.
Thank you, Bronchi.
Yeah.